Dylann Roof, the man who killed 9 people at a historically black church in Charleston, South Carolina last month, was indicted today on federal hate crimes, and he was also charged with killing someone while obstructing religious freedom, which is a charge eligible for the federal death penalty. He already faces 9 counts of murder in state court and could face the death penalty there, but regardless, the Justice Department and the FBI said that the Charleston shooting was so horrific and racially motivated that the federal government must address it, Nick. And I think this is a very important step, the fact that because in the state, in South Carolina, there is no hate crime in the state constitution, so the federal government had to step in and say, we need to charge this as a hate crime so it does not go unnoticed.
I'm wondering why they don't have any hate crime laws in South Carolina. That must go way back to old laws in that state. So that's very interesting in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, the crime, it's obviously racist, was racially motivated. The manifesto that was found and connected to Dylann Roof, it says it really, really clear. I'm in no position to alone go into the ghetto and fight. I must do something. We have no skinheads, no real KK, no one doing anything but talking on the internet. Well, someone has to have the bravery to take it to the real world, and I guess that has to be me. And there's no doubt about it. But then I've been doing the research, and I've been reading about this, following the case really closely, and I've seen a lot of people asking the question, why are there no terrorism charges being brought against Dylann Roof? You know, a lot of people is doing the comparison with the Boston bombings. The Boston bombings only had 3 people died there. This had 9 people. The loss of life, as it is, there was plenty more people affected in the Boston Marathon bombing. But at the same time, this was a very clear action. And I did some research, and I went and I found the definition of terrorism according to U.S. law. And it's basically someone that is willing to break the law to change the government or corporate policy. And the exact language is very clear. To intimidate or coerce a civilian population, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, and kidnapping. So, according to that definition, what Dylann Roof did could qualify very easily as terrorism.
It does in every single way. But there's something missing there, right? We're quicker to call somebody who's Muslim and does something like this. We're much quicker to call that an act of terrorism because one thing that you heard with the Boston bombing, that he was radicalized, right? He went back home and he was radicalized, and he hated America and he hated Christians, and he was an extremist, all these things. But what's the difference between him and Dylann Roof? Is he not radicalized, just in a different sense?
I think it is. I think
it's just racially motivated as opposed to religiously. But you wouldn't see someone like him being kicked and shipped on over to Guantanamo Bay because he's not a Muslim. If he had a different name, right? If he had adopted some Muslim name, right, then this whole thing would be completely different, and we would definitely be referring to him as a terrorist. And that does actually mean something. I know we're just maybe changing the label here, but that does make a difference, right? Because if we're talking about the death penalty and what kind of punishment he'll get, maybe the hate crimes, they'll find that that's not enough to kill him. But what if, there was terrorism charges on there too? That could be enough to give someone like Dylann Roof the death penalty.
Some will say that giving a terrorism charge will not change the possibilities of the prosecution to achieve the death penalty. It wouldn't bring any more because he's already almost facing it on the state court. He's definitely facing it in the federal level. So bringing in terrorism charges wouldn't necessarily bring more punishment or avoid him to getting off, because there's no way he gets off of this. But there's the extra legal complications of calling this terrorism. It opens up the door for him to be removed, for him to be interrogated. But how do we feel as a society to have this, white guy in Guantanamo, us knowing that he might be interrogated, he might be tortured, to know if he's part of a broader network of lone wolves like him that actually are working together and not alone like we want to think, because it's easier to deal with that reality.
And a lot of people in Guantanamo Bay are just suspected. They haven't even proven that they're guilty yet. So there you go.
And there's obviously the Obama administration is trying to phase out Guantanamo Bay. They're trying to close it down. But we bring that thought because we want you to provoke the idea of why are we not calling things for what they are. We have someone that went and tried to terrorize a population. He went out to kill 9 people at a church that they were praying, in a historical black church, with the reasoning of we have to stop black people from taking over this country. That's that creates terror in a community. And we're not calling like that. Funny thing, the first time that mainstream media talk about terrorism and terrorists was back in the 70s when the Rhodesian country was reporting what they were calling the freedom terrorists, the black populations that were trying to get their rights back from these classic white supremacist countries, colonialism. So how funny it is that Dylann Roof was wearing a Rhodesian patch in his jacket when the very first time we heard about terrorism was when Rhodesia was trying to justify their abuses against black populations. Food for thought. Let us know how you feel, and please subscribe to the Lib TV 2.